Here we are. I will soon pass you over to Daniela Dragilis. Daniela has been part of the Culture Chat community for some time. This is, I think, maybe a third or fourth presentation for us over the years. A very interesting topic, obviously very topical topic of AI, but more importantly, how us as interculturalists influence that and are very critical to what's going on there. So enough of my ramblings. I will pass you over to Daniela.
Great. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for having me. Great to be here. Let me start by sharing the screen. And again, help me out here. Okay. Can you see the screen?
We can. Your Canva.
All right. Okay. Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Excellent. So today we'll discuss cultural context in artificial intelligence. We all know that artificial intelligence, although is not new itself, but its adoption is moving at exponential rates these days. And whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, it is here to stay. It is as revolutionary as the internet was in the year 2000s, or as smartphones were, in its time as well. So I feel that in our role as intercultural professionals, it is critical to understand the impact of culture in AI so we can move away from culture blind or generic AI to culture smart AI. Because if we ignore those cultural signals, it can lead to bias, inappropriate, or even harmful outputs. So our role as interculturalists is really crucial in developing culturally aware AI. And just so that we know, a quick question for you, and maybe Peter, you can help me with the chat because I can't see the chat window. I wanted to sort of have a bit of an understanding of your understanding of AI and proficiency in AI. So if you can enter it in the chat, maybe, one being I'm not comfortable, not proficient at all, and 5 being, I use it every day and I feel totally knowledgeable and comfortable with it. Great. So as we can, keep answering in the chat, but like I said, artificial intelligence is not really new. Artificial intelligence has been present in our lives since the 1980s when a computer beat Garry Kasparov in a game of chess. And if you think about things like voice to text recognition, translators, to the cruise control in your car, to the machines, the computer assisted machines that are used in manufacturing facilities, etc. That's all artificial intelligence. What is new is the recent advancements of artificial intelligence that has put it at our disposal and has made it widely accessible through these, very user-friendly interfaces. So, that's what we call large language models and GPT, which stands for generative pre-trained transformers. So that's where really the cultural layer becomes really important, because otherwise we end up dealing with very generic models that are assumed, that carry with them, assumed values and norms that could lead to inaccuracies. So it really goes beyond just language translation, because most of the current systems are largely developed in what we call weird countries or contexts. And you might have heard of this acronym before. Weird stands for Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. So the data, because of the way AI is developed, again, it is not true intelligence in the human context, but it works on, it's a predictive technology. So it predicts what the next question or the next word is going to be based on the data that is stored in the system. And therefore, if the training data is skewed towards a few countries and a few languages, the majority of it is currently in English, it could lead to underrepresentation of non-English languages, dialects, and minority populations. There is a big push worldwide of a lot of countries that want to develop their own large language models and their own systems. A push towards data sovereignty, because a lot of these countries and governments understand that the systems that have been developed so far in mostly Silicon Valley or, even China, have backdoors that could put their data in jeopardy. But that presents a lot of challenges in terms of infrastructure, costs, reliable energy and availability of energy, and even the availability of readily available digital data. So again, this imbalance really affects trust and accuracy in the interactions with these systems. And just to backtrack a little bit, when I talk about these AI systems in this presentation, I'm going to be talking mostly about generative AI, which is the chatbots that we use to interact with AI systems. What you might know as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, Perplexity, Grok, etc. Right? So these are these systems that allow us to sort of ask questions or interact in a very conversational way. That's what they're called, chatbots. To get the information that we need. Now, some of you might have seen some of these charts going around on LinkedIn. Industry reports have consistently highlighted the bias and the consequences or the impact of these biases in AI. And really the key takeaway here is not necessarily to assign blame, but rather to identify a design opportunity. Because if those value distributions that vary across different regions mean, that the default output that we get from AI is going to be geared toward those countries that develop the tools. And interestingly enough, is not just the development of the tools, but also the usage. The way AI works is the more you use it, the more it sort of trains itself. And therefore, those people who have access to the technology tend to be in developed, rich, democratic, industrialized countries. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where not only the model is developed in these quote unquote weird countries, but also the users tend to be mostly from those countries. Therefore, it just reinforces that, the bias in the output of the data, leaving a lot of the other countries underrepresented and really widening that gap. And what happens, from an intercultural or cultural perspective is that when AI design ignores culture, the adoption, the perspectives are also very limited, because they carry not only the language, but the norms of those countries or that are developing and using the technology gets propagated as well. So essentially is, like they say, weird in means weird out. And so failing to really design with AI with culture in mind opens the door to some pretty serious pitfalls that lead to erasing user trust and adoption. And there's certain pitfalls. Pitfall number one is what's called digital colonialism or cultural imperialism. That is something that I learned about. I'm a member of this organization called AI for Developing Countries, mostly represented by countries of the global South. And it is really where it defaults to the dominant norms and being promoted them as universal. Basically, if ChatGPT says it, it must be true and it must be universal, right? So that what happens is those local values are overlooked, and again, it leads to reinforcing those power imbalances in these AI applications. The second pitfall is culture washing, sort of like greenwashing, but for culture. Which means that in some cases, some of the developers or designers might incorporate, some stock photos of very multicultural group of people or include some marketing slogans, but the essence of the culture is ignored. So it sort of dilutes the significance of that cultural awareness. While culture smart AI is what really emphasizes the importance of incorporating those local cultural norms, beliefs, and value systems to minimize bias. And why is that important? Because adoption has grown exponentially. I mean, they say ChatGPT, for ChatGPT, it took 3 years to reach 800 million users, while for the internet back in the days, it took 13 years. So you can see how, again, the technology adoption is growing exponentially. However, the cultural perspective is not there. So we have an opportunity here to influence the way AI behaves beyond just language translation, based on our knowledge and our expertise, to make sure that the output that we receive and others receive as well is is not incorrect and biased. And this is where cultural intelligence comes in and plays a key role in the development of AI and the use of AI. If we know that cultural intelligence is that ability to function effectively across different cultural contexts, and it's more than just being aware and having the knowledge. It's really about taking informed and intentional action. So when we talk about AI, knowing that these systems have to navigate different cultural landscapes, our goal is really to move from merely recognizing those cultural differences to actively integrating them into the AI tools that we use. And one of the key tools that we can use as users, interculturalists, intercultural professionals and users, to help sort of train the AI systems, like I said, it's not just about building, but it's about using them. It's called culture smart prompting. And if you're not very very well, not very comfortable with AI, prompting is actually what we use to ask those questions, to give the system instructions. And again, I'm talking about the chatbot, I'm talking about ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. So prompting is what we use in that little chatbot box to give instructions to, tell the system what to produce. And it's really one of the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal to ensure that the outputs are culturally aware. So this framework called RCAF or RCAF is one of the easiest, I mean, there are many different frameworks out there, but it's one of the ones that I personally find most useful when trying to develop prompts, to ensure that they are culturally smart. So R is for role, and it really defines the role of the chatbot and sets the foundation for how it should think, who it should pretend to be. C is for context, and this is where we clarify the cultural landscape, the goals, the constraints, any sensitivities that might be present in the culture that we are targeting. So, for example, this is where we can talk about direct communication or saving face, or, what are the cultural values, those cultural priorities that should be taken into account when this chatbot produces the output. You can even add examples. You can even add or reference your favorite authors like Hofstede or Trompenaars. If your chatbot has access to the internet, they can also search for sort of that context in the prompting. A stands for action, and it tells the model exactly what it needs to produce. So the clearer we are with the instructions and the more direct we are, the better output we're going to have. It's sort of like, having a personal assistant, right, that does the work for you. The more clear directions you give it, the better output you're going to have. And finally, format, how you want the output to be structured. So we can look at a concrete example here. A regular prompt would be, draft a sales proposal that includes 3 options for selling, X, Y, and Z. While a culture smart prompt would specify that this is a proposal, that this is somebody who's pretending to be, a specialist who understands German business norms. Because the client is German, they value precision, detailed data, reliability, compliance, a formal tone with clear assumptions and references, right? We tell the chatbot what action we want and how to produce. Again, because it is a German client, we know that they will expect very specific scope, technical specs, deliverables, etc., highlighting reliability and acceptance criteria, and then, how the output should be. Now, again, because it is a predictive technology, it makes mistakes. It cannot always be right 100% of the time. So it is very important not to forget that this is a tool, just like an assistant, just like if you had an assistant doing this kind of work and writing this proposal for you, you would receive it and not just submit it blindly. You would double check it and triple check it to make sure that it is correct. So when you interact with these AI tools, is exactly the same. You have to double check, and you have to add your own knowledge and expertise. So again, being as specific as possible, adding that cultural context explicitly, challenging assumptions, do not assume Western individualistic norms because you are, preparing something for maybe a Korean client or a, Thai client that values, collectivistic norms. Request multiple perspectives, be specific in the type of communication style that you expect. If you are working with a client that uses high context in direct communication that preserves face, say it. And the more we specify and you clearly define that cultural context, the better output you're going to have. So I started saying that we have a crucial role here to play as cultural guardians, because we have really an opportunity and a responsibility to provide a counterbalance to those default weird norms. So when we use these chatbots, there are opportunities to provide feedback, to up what do you call it, to downvote or flag culturally inappropriate outputs, and explain why. Because the more feedback we provide to these systems, the better they will operate in the future, and the better results we're going to have in the future. So it's really important for us to reframe the narrative. You know, every technology has presented sort of a bit of unease and fear, because the future is unknown. But if you think about it, you know, in the 1960s, teachers were out on the streets complaining and protesting, you know, for the introduction of calculators in schools. And here we are, you know, several decades later, with not only calculators, but many other technologies. So yes, unknown future, you know, always presents unease and fear. But it is our responsibility to embrace this new technology, to make sure that we work collaboratively to make it work for us. And again, there's always this fear that technology is going to replace us. I believe that it is the opposite, that if we know how to use this technology to help us, we can leverage what makes us uniquely human, with our curiosity, our empathy, our imagination, our creativity. Those are not going to go away. Those are the values that we can add to these tools to continue to do our professional work as intercultural professionals. So we don't really compete with AI, we collaborate with it. We point out the problems, we pair it with our human strengths, and we provide our leadership to really bring those cultural layers, those norms, those beliefs that we know are going to make AI work better for us. So we're gonna move on to short discussion in breakout rooms if Peter helps us. The question, you know, is how are you using AI in your work today, and what biases have you encountered? And most importantly, how can you contribute to making AI more culturally intelligent? Because nobody has all the answers right now. I think, you know, it's everybody's responsibility to you know, to provide their input here. So I'm going to stop the share right now, and Peter, take it away.
Okay, as Daniela said there, I will re-paste those discussion prompts into the chat after you're in your breakout rooms. But going to send you all off now into the breakout rooms for what should we